kept him in the streak.
Well, I'll fall off my chair if he plays e4. He's not playing e4 here.
d4, okay, you have to deal with all kinds of different things, from a Slav, semi-Slav, to a Queen's Gambit decline, to a Nimzo Indian, even to a Grunfeld. I mean, Wesley can come at you with so many defenses, and many of them are just really ultra sound.
But he's really close now to his first U.S. title. Will he be nervous? Will the nerves of being in this moment affect him? And we see G3 on the board.
Trying to keep the tension in the position in a must-win situation. So
when we saw this yesterday in the game between Hikaru and VAR, VAR got a very pleasant game, I believe, out of the opening against Hikaru, but he messed it up when he had his opportunity, did VAR.
And Wesley playing very quickly and confidently here.
This is where Hikaru played h3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3 against VAR. But there was a knight on f6 too. So a slight different wrinkle here by Wesley. And by the way, with this last move, knight d7, he is essaying he's eyeballing that opportunity to play e5, occupying the center and grabbing an easy equality should that be allowed.
Curious to know what Alex is thinking about already
h3
in this position.
And he went d3. Okay, so with d3, he's really giving Wesley the opportunity of occupying the center with e5. I consider those positions quite comfortable for black. An easy equality. Wesley played knight f6 rather quickly.
Rock solid, though. Rock solid position. We see h3, bishop h5.
Very quickly played by Wesley.
And the key in this situation when you have to win is to play quickly and not necessarily try to imbalance the position greatly. Your opponent really wants a draw, and e5 has been played, yes.
Absolutely.
Your opponent is desperate for a draw. Don't play like you're desperate for a win, even though you need it. Build on the position. Get good moves. Get the game to last. He could get nervous. Move 45, move 50, move 60. Keep it going and be the one that has more nerves when the time comes, tougher nerves when the time comes. If you rush this too quickly, you could end up seeing your initiative dissipate, and suddenly you have no advantage at all.
Exactly. And after the move e2, e4, very quickly bishop e7 by Wesley, he also had the opportunity of fixing so-called symmetrical pawn position and posting his bishop on c5. I'm more a fan of this aggressive method of play by Wesley, but Wesley did play the move bishop e7, saying, okay, what you going to do? I've got my classical central pawn duo here in the middle of the board, d5, e5. I'm controlling matters, and we see the move queen e1, stepping out of this kind of annoying pin. No other way of describing that.
Eyeing the pawn on e5, and also the idea of knight h4, releasing that pawn on f2.
Exactly.
Engines don't really like that move, thinking it gives equality. Rook e1, they suggested.
Castles quickly by Wesley, saying, my pawn's not hanging.
Well, because you can always interpolate bishop takes f3, but does Wesley have something more aggressive in mind?
I think he does, frankly. Just as simple as recapturing and saying, look, it's almost Marshall Gambit kind of territory here. But wait a minute, I don't like losing my pawn. Maurice.
Actually, you don't mind losing your pawn when you see this move appear on the board, a knight to b4, and suddenly c2 is hanging, and we see the minus of the move queen to e1. There's just nothing to do about knight landing on c2 now. So this line just does not work. It's not a pawn you can capture at all. Wesley was aware of it, and he's given him something to think about now in this position. As we go back to castles, Wesley just did it right away, knowing that's not a real pawn you could even think about capturing.
If I want to be greedy, can I just interpolate g4 and then take on e5 so that after knight b4, at least I can, you know, grovel with like knight takes d7 and queen d1? Or is the problem that
g4, knight takes
the problem
c5.
is that after knight b4, it's actually not defending c2, but rather holding on to my knight on e5 that might be the problem. But here I have knight g6, right? Mm-hmm. So that knight c2 allows knight takes e7.
Right, so, and you do have this way of coming back. But you know, Jen, when you play this move g4, followed by knight takes e5, you're going to have real regrets that you weakened this at first. I mean,
other types of play.
This looks like
There's a lot of other stuff
that just went awfully wrong for white here.
This is a pawn even you don't like.
I know, yeah, that would be my limit. That would
He
be
played
my
knight h4 instead.
What did he do? Yes, knight h4 instead. He didn't go in for any of these pawn capture lines, but knight h4 has a very clear motivation. He wants to post his knight to f5 and hunt down the Stark-Swift bishop. Wesley said, I like my bishops. I'll move my rook so that in anticipation of this move, knight f5, he'll drop back with his bishop either to f8, which I think is his intent, or, again, if he's in an aggressive mode, he'll go bishop c5. Guys, this is a very easy equality. I mean, a very easy equality in my view.
Well, the move knight b3 actually right now, which looks slightly odd for the knight to be circulating on that side of the board, is actually an interesting move in this position. The engines are timing out the move g4 and g5 at the right moment to try to challenge black this way. With the knight on f5 and your bishop dropping back, that g-pawn will be fairly secure. So there's a lot of pressure on the position, and he's taking the knight the other route, which that's why I said knight b3 is so counterintuitive, because most of us would not want to put our knight over on b3. It looks like it's hanging out by itself on that side of the board. But knight b3 was an interesting little wrinkle. Instead, he's played more classically with this last move. But this move does freeze his knight. I mean freeze as in stops his knight from being able to go back to f3, the one on h4. These knights are sort of stepping on each other right now.
The superfluous knight.
The superfluous knight, indeed.
Well, I seem to recall knight b3. Wasn't that wonderful game between Irina Krush and Nagy, where it was Irina actually played this idea of knight b3, and she ended up going after a pawn that was up on a5. Very quickly we saw a very quick trade of pawns on e4 by Wesley. So this move knight f3 was not a surprise at all for Wesley.
Followed by going after the c-pawn, the e-pawn.
Right. You got
first choice of the engines, by the way.
Yeah.
Highlighting the minus of knight to f3.
Right. Yeah, and you don't really want to, again.
You don't want to play knight h2?
Well, you don't want to play knight takes e5 because after the very simple bishop d6, black is actually much better developed, and he's ready to rip this pawn off on e4, and white's queen, vis-a-vis the rook, is feeling very uncomfortable. So Wesley looking great.
By the way, even in that line, knight takes e5,
yes,
you also have the shot knight takes e4, knight f takes e4, and that sacrifice releases the bishop to h4 with the rook on the line as well, attacking the knight. So bishop takes knight in this line is met by bishop takes on h4. And
there's an unfortunate pile-up accident happening on the e-file.
And uncertainty now, as Wesley's making this look easy coming out of the opening. Did g4 just get played?
g4 has been played, and that creates a lot of tactical possibilities with the bishop and the queen hitting that knight on h4.
Well, let's just look at that. Well, now there's a b4. Pieces are hanging everywhere. The bishop on h5 is hanging. The knight on h4 is hanging. There's going to be, since these knights are protecting each other, there's going to be a b4. So check this out, Jen. I'll take your piece. You'll take my piece. And here, I'll take your bishop. You'll take my knight. And I'll strike with the move b4. And this knight's this knight's defenders, one is getting booted, and there's it looks like a piece.
Winning, yes, that would be good for white. The unfortunate thing is the best move for black is simply bishop g6.
Not to enter those complications.
Right, just to drop the bishop back to g6 and allow you to take this bishop is how the engines are playing. I think that...
Because now knight h4, there's knight e4, right?
Sorry, Jennifer?
Oh, I'm saying after... Okay, so after knight takes g6, now...
Oops, sorry.
hg6. This knight, critically, by the way, knight takes e5. You have to move this piece somewhere because your pawn is hanging. So this is an interesting position as well. Actually, the pawn's hanging, but now I realize if this knight takes g5 wins, and if this knight takes b4 wins. So maybe your pawn isn't really hanging in this position, but sharp, what to do next is what's it's in White's problem here is how do you not mess up the coordination of the two possibilities?
Right.
If you play
play
B4
right away.
If you play B4 right away, he's not going to take your pawn. He's going to play knight to E6, and this knight is headed places. So
Right.
just
Bishop B2.
not a bit weird, this position. That pawn structure for White is really compromised here, and that is a problem.
Yes, indeed.
That's right. So a weird position where B4, knight E4, there's G5, which would be good for White. So just playing knight E6, trying to hammer down on that square.
And
And that's probably the kind of variation we're going to see because Wesley has played bishop to G6.
exactly.
So how do you assess that? Yaz, after B4, knight E6, bishop B2.
I don't like it for White. I simply don't like it for White. One of the things I'm drawn to is this bishop on G2 is kind of crying itself to sleep over here. It's a very passive bishop, and, you know, White could easily become significantly worse if any knight was to drop into this F4 square. A trade of dark squared bishops would be a huge strategical advantage for Black. So already I feel that Black has gone past the equalizing stage, and actually I would just simply prefer to play Black at this exact moment. And we have seen this move, knight takes E5.
Wow.
Maurice, I thought that this was too dangerous to essay.
Yeah, it looks pretty dangerous. Given that you're opening up a position where the other guy has a lead in development, this move now the engines give knight takes on E4, winning the pawn back. But there's something to hope for here with knight takes E4 is that this bishop on G2 that you were so disgusted by, he has a little bit more breathing room, and the engines give bishop E3 in this position and saying Black is definitely better here, especially after queen C7, full coordination of the forces. But I think if you look at a position like this, my assessment is if you don't lose, if there's no direct way for you to just get pushed off the board, maybe you can maintain the energy in this position. He has played bishop D6, however, a super challenging move. Not the engine's first choice after knight takes E5, by the way.
Funny,
Bishop to
yeah.
D6, a secondary choice because of knight C4, this move.
And that's been played quickly by Alex.
Yes, and now the engines are saying, wait a minute, the advantage you had before is dropped down just a bit. Black is ahead in coordination of forces, but after you take here, takes here, and queen takes D6, now White has the two bishops, but are they enough to win any game? This is giving triple zeros the engine in this position, the best that Ornischuk has had in quite a while.
Wow. But again, I'm looking at this position, and I'm looking at White's king. I'm eyeballing opportunities here for Black to tactically take advantage of the rook on E8. So you're saying bishop E3 here
To stop
and
knight G3.
triple zeros? Wow. Knight D5?
He's got to
Rook
see
D1.
D6
Yeah.
now to start.
That's a key move in this position.
Yes,
So we
knight
have
takes.
this
Key
is-
move. Get rid of that guy's dark square dominance on that diagonal.
Right.
You want to get that out of here immediately. Immediately, that's got to disappear off the board. You'll be hitting the rook on E8, so there's no tactics there. And actually, the engines say move the queen away to D1
Okay,
and play, and he's taking the bishop,
naturally.
and queen is captured. Play queen D1 and just play with the two bishops. This could be
Makes a lot of
actually
sense.
something reasonable for White. You know, the engines might be giving it triple zeros because there are no weaknesses in Black's position. But we know the two bishops, we've seen Botvinnik do it against Bronstein, I believe is a famous game from a world championship, where and many a player have shown, I've got the two bishops, we're just going to play for a long time. As long as you can't neutralize anything, and we keep some pieces on the board, there's always going to be the imbalance of two bishops against bishop and knight. And maybe he could play for something in that kind of game.
Well, certainly Black wants to keep the queens on the board in this position because
Right.
after the queen trade, then White would have a really easy game.
Exactly.
But with the queens on the board, we're always going to have to worry about our king side, and even developing the bishop on C1, not that easy.
Right. I mean, with the pawn shield thrust up the board, G4 and H3, there's some dark square weaknesses. Black is going to want to play rook A D8 and meet a move like bishop e3 with
your
a
knight
future knight
d5.
d5.
What about
And
c4 right now? Although I don't see that
After
engine
queen
suggesting
c7?
the move.
c2, c4.
I know I create a big weakness on d3 playing that move.
Wow.
And
Rook
queen
d8.
c2?
Queen c2. Your purpose of c4 was twofold: to give your queen an out and also to prevent knight d5.
Yes.
Gotcha. Very reasonable. Very reasonable.
Yeah, the engine's giving equality here with knight c5. Yeah, I'm glad I found a good move. But
But you did
knight
give me a square.
Right, but bishop e3 now, and
Yeah.
no worries with the knight appearing on the d3 square, and some pressure on the queen side become possible in that line. So the engines just give equality in this variation, which makes perfect sense.
By the way, this is a very rich strategic game. A lot of our
Look at that.
amateur players in our audience will come to appreciate having the two bishops.
And we do see this line, queen takes d6, queen d1.
D-
Has been played. Alexander would love it if Wesley would capture this queen, but won't be
Gonna-
any dice.
Yeah.
And Wesley so on move. Unexpectedly, I mean, as expected, he is ahead on the clock.
But only a little bit. That's not much.
What is the time?
That's not much. And we're
16?
in Alexander Ornischuk territory as far as endgame play, nuance, nothing wild. Just
So-
try to grind him down, see where he goes. This is the kind of position that he jumps up and down in his hotel room if he gets on his computer. He's thinking, yeah, this is my stuff. I like to play these endgames. So I'm glance over at the clock. I'll show you some moves. This is how he's won the tournament so far, by the way. I got to this position in the first place is not through big attacking games, but by grinding people down in the end games.
No queen c7.
What was that
Instead,
last move?
Instead, we see queen c5, which surprises us because we were always looking at these bishop e3 moves, which were well met by knight d5.
Right.
But this lets us get bishop e3 in with a tempo. So
Slightly
why not
inferior
just
move.
do it?
Slightly inferior move, in
Indeed.
fact. Bishop e3 automatic.
Queen b5, getting... Wesley's got an idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, but Wesley's got an idea that he's lured... I put that in quote marks. He's lured the bishop to e3 so that he may have ideas like knight g3, taking advantage of the fact that the bishop relies upon the f2 pawn for protection.
How about
But
queen
this-
d3 here?
Or
I'm gonna-
better, queen c1. Queen
And he's
c1
playing
with the
bishop-
c4 idea.
He's played bishop e3.
Rightfully
very,
so.
Very, very quickly.
Small error by Wesley So, guys. That was definitely a mistake on his part. And bishop to e3, taking advantage of the tempo. And now queen b5, queen c1 is playable with c4 threats. You have no knight g3 anymore.
Very strange decision by Wesley. Queen c5. We're going to call that an error. Maybe the first error in this rapid chess match for Wesley. Is he beginning to feel the pressure?
Well, no queen
of,
b5, though.
you know,
It doesn't matter what you play. You just threw away a couple of moves. Why would you really play queen c5 and let a guy play bishop e3 on you?
No.
Yeah, it's very
Like, who
strange.
does that?
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
his? I wonder what his purpose is
Well,
for that.
let's
Maybe
see.
he doesn't want to play queen b5 because we really don't want to see that c4 move on the board just gaining a tempo. Maybe he wants to play queen e5 in this position.
well,
Right.
that's that I think would play into
Yeah.
into Alex's hands. Alex just wants to trade queens. He wants this end game of two bishops versus two knights, 3 versus 3 on both sides of the
And
board.
stability.
And
stability as
stability.
well. You want a stable
Yeah.
position because the knights don't have a true home. And he's played queen a5.
So queen a5.
Queen a5. Wow. Again,
But that queen
some
doesn't
strange moves
seem-
by Wesley So here.
Now,
Yeah,
next
but-
move, I'm going to say it again. It's the move I suggested earlier. C4 is money in the bank. You got the bishop on e3 now. That knight g3 is not a threat. So rook
Right.
e1 will happen. And bam, he's played it. C4. Now, white is actually a little bit better in this
sure.
position.
Yeah.
That last move, queen c5, a real mistake. And guess what? White can also go for ideas like a3, b4 and start to say, I got this weird little position where your knights don't have stable squares.
That's right. When we play queen c2, we're going to be threatening g5 if the queen leaves that square. We can even have some tactics with b4, queen b4, g5, and your knight on e4 is unprotected.
Exactly.
That's what happens with those codependent knights,
Yes,
sir.
exactly. Don't we know that so very well? You just chase away the defending knight.
And look at Ornischuk. Body posture, no longer intense over the board. Just leaned back for a moment there and inspected the work and said, yeah, I'm starting to feel this position.
Right.
And calculating lines, he knows it, and Wesley knows it too. Queen c5 was definitely a slip. He's going to need all of that 28-20 rating to start getting out of this position, because now he's giving his opponent a chance to take a little bit of initiative. That Queen c2 move is going to be a tuck. That's the best Alex has seen. Look at this position.
Yes.
That's
All
right.
agreed on all counts,
And
absolutely.
his position improving on the board and also improving on the clock. And it's a little puzzling what Wesley's idea was with Queen c5. He must have had some reason why he didn't like the more natural Queen c7.
I don't know what it was, but he definitely erred. Let's see if we can't do some reparation work here. So rook d8, queen c2. You've been mentioning there's a b4, g5 types of tactics. I don't think this knight is stable on the e4 square. I'll retreat it to the c5 square with the idea of bringing it to e6 and eyeballing the opportunity to try to control the f4 square. Guys, go ahead and clobber me.
By the way, just an interesting echo, an interesting echo of the previous game. Drop your move, queen back, drop back 2 moves in this position here, and play queen b3 instead after rook d8. Queen b3. Remember, we just saw queen b3 happen a moment ago when Wesley played it.
Right.
It added some pressure to the position. Injit saying this is quite interesting for white here. Remember, the bishop on g2, its biggest problem is it's biting on granite along the long diagonal. So even if you're going to win the pawn back on b2 somehow, we want the unbalanced pawn structure. We want that bishop to come alive. And as long as your knights don't find stable squares, they'll always be attackable. We might even just leave them there. We just want them to sit for the moment when we get our tactic to take one of these pieces.
What about knight c5 though, and just trying to sack the pawn and start playing with our rooks on the
Make sure it works.
second
Make
rank.
sure it works. Injuns are greedy, and there goes Yasser. He's pretty greedy too. You better show something.
Roll up my sleeves. And
I was trying to play rook d2 and rook e2, but you're just I guess I'll start with rook e2. Rook e2. Well, okay, rook d2.
yeah, well, exactly. You're hoping that once you, well, I mean, obviously, if you could double rooks and attack this pawn on f7, you've got good good plans.
You can't tempo with this move queen c6.
That's precisely it. That's a very annoying move to handle.
And what if I just try to keep queens on the board with queen d4?
Absolutely.
Not acquiescing to any kind of bad endgame.
Right. Well, indeed, all of those pawns did get munched. I suppose,
Bishop f, something solid like bishop f3?
just maintaining things.
Stopping rook e2, of course.
Yeah, also queen f3, rook e2, rook e1 type style ideas.
g5 has to be calculated, but I was thinking I would just go for it now with rook e2.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Wesley isn't necessarily playing for the win here. All he needs is a draw. You're putting black in a position where he has to rely upon his attack to save the game. Is there a solid alternative to this move, queen b3? We don't know, because Wesley has not yet played with the move rook d8.
Finally moved.
He did, and
Now a key decision point for Alex. Is he going to play queen b3 or c2?
well, queen c2 had that natural idea, what you were mentioning, Jen, of just, attacking this knight, forcing it to retreat, until we realize actually the knight probably does want to retreat to c5. Let's take another look at this move, queen b3, because, again, Alex needs the win, okay? There's no question. He has to pull off something. In this position, if you wanted, Jennifer, to sacrifice the b7, c6 pawns, I'll do it right away. Don't play knight c5. Just slap
that's
the knight on
keeping
d2.
it simple, sure.
I mean, okay, you want to sacrifice a pawn? Do it in this fashion. Takes on knight d2, forking queen and rook. Takes on d2. Takes on d2. Now you got to take on b7. And in this position, your queen may not necessarily go to c5. It may go to g5. It may, in fact, be perfectly happy on
Indians
a7.
there give queen a8 and bishop f3 in this position and tell your rook to get out. And
That's nasty.
It looks like you don't have any tactics with rook takes f2 because the other rook shows up So the c6 pawn will drop in this line. And he didn't go for it with queen b3. He played queen c2.
Yeah, I think that was the more conservative move. I suspect the knight d2 didn't necessarily scare him off, but I suspect he said,
Knight c5.
I want to rely on my two bishops and
Knight
grind
c5,
you down.
and note that it's
Very
Ornischuk
quickly.
ahead on the clock right now.
That's critical.
Very quickly played, by the way. Wesley understood in that deep thing, that tank that he went into by playing rook a d8, that knight on e4 is basically unstable, and the square it wants is f4. I mean, that's the one weak target square in White's camp. If you can play knight e6, g5, knight f4 in consecutive moves, advantage spins again.
Interesting position. Even though queen b3 was the technically best move,
Yes.
definitely the best move. Queen c2 giving some respite to black in this moment. I feel like queen c2 obeys the principle of keeping the game alive unless you know you're winning with some shot. What I mean is, this move, there's a lot of game ahead. You can actually see that there's a lot of game ahead.
Exactly.
But queen b3, the crisis point happens immediately, and if he has some shot like knight d2 or knight c5, there's not a lot of game ahead. In fact, you've shut down the opportunity. You better know that you're winning when you play queen b3, queen b7, because it's just going to be resolution very quickly. Controlled chess by Alex.
Ooh.
And look at this, Alabat Vinnik allowing double pawns
Wow.
with queen c3.
Wow.
What
Immediately,
a
too.
decision.
Yeah.
He had planned that with rook after e1.
But by the way, guys, isn't there a pawn on hanging? You know me, my spidey sense is tingling. I'm not going to take your queen. I'm going to win a pawn.
Well,
rook d1, queen a2.
Hold on, let's go back to here. I don't think you want to take pawns in this position. Rook d1 here,
Yeah, rook
and
d1.
takes,
Take.
and queen takes on a2.
Yes.
Possible.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, it is very possible to play this variation. But the ancients are giving triple zeros in this position as well, dealing with these knights. The knights are the problem. The knights don't have any real squares. But I am stunned by that decision, and now also stunned by the speed with which Wesley So played his move, queen c7. He did not
No
even
pawn, no queen trade.
glance at the queen trade. Alex is playing with like the force of his certainty right now. He's like he's imposing, I want a queen trade. I don't care if it's double pawns or two bishops. And both of them are judging the two bishops to be so powerful that you can't afford a queen trade. That's amazing. What's going on in the minds of the players right now, the strength of the two bishops, those last few moves look like they went in Ornischuk's favor.
And queen a3 now going after the a7 pawn, man after your own heart, yes.
Yeah, I'm still kind of wondering why Wesley I guess Wesley didn't like the dynamic potential that White had along the d file going after the a2 pawn. Move queen c7, very consistent with his last few moves, which was to spin the knight over to that f4 square and to try to take advantage of the weakened white king side.
Right, indeed. You can't get too frisky and start just like taking your pawn.
Is there anything over there on the king side? If you play knight f4 and bishop f1, what's your follow-up?
Nothing. I just want to cement the knight on f4 and play like, I don't know. There might be rook takes e3 style, queen g3 shots, but in this position, I'm going to keep my pawn. I'm going to play the move a7, b7, b6. Yeah, I'm going to make this bishop's life a very happy one now that there's a pawn weakness. But after I play c5, I'll be shutting down the dark square bishop. But that wasn't...
That is what he played, b6.
Sorry, from the web, I didn't see it quite clearly. But b7, b6 was Wesley's choice. Players very even on time. That's a very good sign for Alex.
This is the kind of game
Ornischuk
Alex wish he had with the black pieces going into the last round instead of the wild melee he found himself down having to sacrifice a pawn very quickly in the last game. Still, he was okay. It wasn't his type of chess, and he didn't find the moves naturally. If he had just played like this or somehow gotten something like this, but then if he did, he would have been Wesley So.
Right.
And if we keep going after pawns in this position with nibbling queen a4?
Yes, a very natural move, of course. The bishop on g2, bearing down. Like I said, I feel like it's necessary that I shut down the dark square bishop with this move. c6, c5.
And that's one of the reasons why Alex has just played the move b4, trying to prevent that move and perhaps play queen a4 next move.
It looks good. How does the engine assess this position? If you say 3 triple zeros, I'm going to be really upset with you.
Well, then I don't want to upset you.
And now Wesley played the move g5.
Right.
He's trying to stop us from ever playing g5 and also looking, again, at cementing that f4 square, so there wouldn't be a tactic with bishop takes f4 and bishop takes c6.
Yeah, there's no g4, g5 opportunities anymore for white. Wesley ready to plant a knight on the f4 square. Now, the idea of b4, I'm with you, Jen. I think the only natural follow-up now to the move b4 is queen to a4 attacking this pawn. Now, here, I'm beginning this, I don't know, I'm seeing some nice options here for black. It's not like you automatically have to play c6, c5. There's some stuff here.
But queen a4 is seeming a little offside.
Yeah,
Doesn't white want to get the queen somewhere and play a4 maybe and start some kind of demonstration like that if possible?
Yeah, you want to go queen.
Yeah, slow, exactly. I want to be slow. As slow as possible.
Well, queen a4, I could try to go into c6 and force the trade of queen.
Yeah,
He
queen
has
a4,
played
he has
queen
this line.
a4 and a very quick c5. Wesley, considering the fact that, look, I'm just getting my pawns on dark squares and I'm playing against this dark square bishop, very quick. These are some very important strategic decisions being made by both players, and they're doing them very, dare I say it, rapidly.
Oh, they need to.
Yeah.
In the last game, Alex really suffered from the loss of time. So after knight takes c5,
Which leaves white with split queenside pawns and a very sweet outpost on c5.
note that g5 is hanging. So if we play queen c6 in this position,
Yes.
how are you
I
dealing
like
with
that.
that?
I like that move a lot, Jen. I didn't want to trade queens as black, but now you're threatening both my g5 pawn as well as my queen. I'm going to try to just play with the queens on the board. Again, for me, the key factor is a slight vulnerability of white's king, and I don't want to give my opponent this nice 2 bishops ending. Queen e5 would be my choice.
Yeah, that does stop some of my fun, because all the fun squares are occupied by that knight on f6.
Yeah, the knight on f6 certainly covers some important business squares on d7 as well as d5. You can't just post up with your bishop on d5 and the d-file, all the
And don't throw
squares
in
are
rook takes
covered.
d8, because there's a queen takes a1 check.
Oops.
which would be
Oops.
a sad way to end a championship bid, indeed.
That would be a nasty swish and zoop. But now Alex is beginning to tank as he realizes that, well, you know, he got the 2 bishops, but he still doesn't have his grip on black's position.
And reconsidering perhaps maybe posting that queen somewhere else, because it's funny, on c6 it seems like the queen should be doing something, but we're having trouble having any fun. In this position, he might prefer to have his queen on f5, so maybe he'll just drop back to c2.
All right.
And renew the attack on the pawn, and he has done queen c2.
It seems like the more practical choice, actually. Sorry.
Because now with queen e5, I could try queen f5. Again, trying to insist on the queen trade on my own terms.
I'm getting tired of like these constant face-offs. I mean, people always want to trade down into the ending. Alex keeps insisting on these queen trades, but Wesley,
Just play knight to e6 in this position.
will he just step back and defend his pawn? He has. Knight e6, very, very solid choice once again.
Remember, knights need stable squares. The knights are doing it from where they are, e6 and f6. They're not going to move now, and they seem immovable, actually, on those squares. So they have a great defensive posture. Now we see the move a4. That's the move we were talking about earlier. And now knight f4.
Well, again, I'm posting up this knight on f4. I think Wesley's made an incredibly wise strategic plan, and he's so consistent about following through with what he's been doing for really the greater part of the last half dozen moves or so. Knight f4, and if white loses the 2 bishops, if white simply allows knight takes g2, this game's headed for a draw for certain. I mean, somehow Alex is going to need to keep both bishops.
Bishop
But
F1 seems the only way to do it.
Yeah, but Bishop F1 it carries a
With
lot of burden.
Say hello.
Well, I mean, one move that I would find attractive would be knight to d5. Give me that bishop. A big time move going on there. Again, I'm starting to see some combinative ideas with knight takes h3 and rook takes e3.
That's a killer.
Bishop F1 has been played.
That's an initiative squelcher, that move knight to d5.
Yeah.
The Indians are loving black after this move. The queen unprotected on the c2 square.
That's what I'm thinking too, Maurice.
That's why, when you play queen a4, I didn't think going for queen a4 was right.
Yeah.
I thought move your queen back and go for a4. You'd be a tempo ahead in the main lines. You have no advantage, but at least you'd be up. The way he's played it now suddenly black, when you force the resolution, which is the tendency when you're trying to win, you force the resolution, you better know that you're coming out of it on top.
Right.
Yeah, I think he might have underestimated queen c6, queen e5, because queen c6 seems like, oh, that's cool, I get my queen into this nice square, but the queen was unassailable on e5.
As Victor Korchnoi would say, pawns do not move backwards. That huge outpost for the knights. Knights love outposts, and this f4, not in this particular moment, but a move or two earlier, the move g4, g3 would have been just ideal for white to stop this knight from getting there. After
Huge edge for white after that move, yes.
Right. After this move, knight f6, d5, I'm turning the tables and saying black has the initiative, and this whole demonstration on the queen side with b4 and a4 and c.
Check this out.
Wrong.
Check this out. You're making this point. In this position, after knight d5, the best move, bishop c1. Go find that move. You put your bishops out of the way of these knights and tell them you're superfluous. You guys are stepping on each other. What are you going to do? If knight to b4 now, crazy line, rook takes on d8, and now queen to e4.
No, you got to play queen b1 to get all your pieces in the background.
Queen b1 is slightly unadvisable. But queen e4 in this position, and suddenly the knights have to retreat. The best move being given, knight e6 or knight c6 in this position, or even knight a6. In fact, the only way to keep the game going, just keep it going. Black has no way to land a blow, apparently, in this position. Something like rook d1 will instantly be met by bishop f4, and suddenly your rook is hanging on d1. So there are no forward moves that the Indians are finding. So you'd have to find this ultra deep knight c5, knight cd5, bishop to c1. Actually, even bishop to d2, much more natural, is also playable in this position, and giving knight e7 or knight e6 as the best moves. So this is actually okay for white, even though white's not saying anything necessarily. At least black is not flying forward. And we've just seen a trade on the d1 square.
Whoa.
Rook takes d1 has been played, and
whoa, I don't like that decision by Wesley.
That's an important decision has been made, going further into the endgame with this move. And now knight to e4, which is...
That was his intent, was that he wanted to keep the e4 square protected, but he's given up the d-file.
He's given up everything about that previous attack we're talking about. Now the Indians actually love white. The key move here, guys...
Rook d4.
a5.
A5.
a5, very deep move. The point being after takes c5.
Of course.
And now suddenly... these knights, particularly this knight on e4, looks strange, and this pawn is starting to come down the board. What do? If you try to stop this with this move, suddenly you're losing material after takes, and bishop to g2, and unstable knight. The bishop showing their teeth in this position, and he has played a5. a5 is on the board right now. Wesley So has taken, and no, he has not taken yet. c5 has happened. This is doing my analysis, so refresh. a5 has occurred on the board. He's noticed this possibility for his pieces. White has the initiative now. According to the Indians, white's just better in this position. Not by a tremendous amount, but this is exactly what you'd fantasize about. And look at him again. Every time he plays a move that he feels good about, he leans back and starts studying his work of art. He's feeling very good in this position. Advantage white right now.
And looking at Wesley, so what about not taking on a5? That seems like a poison pawn.
I would never want to allow this runaway passer on c4. I'm not a big fan of this move, this knight being on e4.
That was a bad idea.
I suspect that Wesley's intent is just to kind of blockade the attack against the b6 pawn with a move like knight e4 to c5. And
don't
just
forget
say,
queen f5, yes. Queen f5 is going to be possible. Suddenly there's going to be some funny business around your king. Although in this specific position,
you have rook e5, huh?
Don't rook e5. Maybe there's some
rook d8
back rank issues. I don't know. The position is going to get wild.
Rook d8 check forces a trade of rook, so.
well, I do like knight on knight to c5, and he played it. It's a very natural move to again. The knights seek solid, protected squares.
Queen f5 is a good move right now. First take on b6. Sorry, resolve the weakness on b6. Make sure that happens forever.
Okay.
And then queen f5 is going to be very strong. The reason being rook e5 runs into bishop f4. And if you really want to lose a pawn after bishop f4, you may. But it is a pawn. And you will try to blockade this position and prove a draw. But you know white is going to play forever.
Of course.
And look at that. His hand is on the queen.
He's ready to infiltrate. And that bishop on f1, it suddenly becomes handy, stopping a rook
it
e1
is.
check.
F5.
Queen f5. And the engine's like white right now. He's going to have to play something like knight c to e6 to really stabilize those knights. But b6 is a weak pawn forever now.
And why is f7, f6 a poor choice?
It's possible, but then h4 is coming. h4.
You keep coming from different.
Oh yeah, now you're feeling it. Now
yeah.
you're feeling it. This is totally white's advantage in this position. Wesley's going to have to defend and try to resolve this issue. But the key to this position is that you will never find a balanced position ever. The knights and bishops don't resemble each other at all. The only balanced position will happen is if you could take both bishops with both your knights, or he decides to take both bishops with both knights.
F6 has been played,
F6.
and time advantage by Alexander Ornischuk now.
H4 is huge right now. H4 is a big-time move for him.
And by the way, the thing that I really do like about the move h4, one of the handsome pluses of having the knight on f4 is it always kept white honest regarding the h3 pawn was constantly under attack. The move h4 not only gets your pawn out of captures in many lines, but like you say, you're undermining the protection of the knight on f4 by attacking the g5 pawn. So you get a 2-for-1.
Oh, he's so smooth in these types of positions. He might be 2,800 in these types of positions. Not as good in the sharper, wilder type positions. But he's in his element right now, finding every single move.
Rook e5 still met by bishop f4. That's why this is kind of hard to see, because it looks like rook e5 just shuts the queen out. But bishop f4, we just pick up a pawn. You can't take on f5 because bishop takes c7, leaves us up a whole piece.
Guys, how do you feel if you see h4 on the board? How do you personally feel?
Not good.
Even if you're fine. Even if you're fine. The move h4 is like, wait, what is he doing? He's starting to do stuff. What's up?
He's coming after me.
Yeah, clearly.
I was playing fantastically as the underdog here. This David versus Goliath moment for him.
Oh, yes. Now, unfortunately for Wesley, he doesn't have an out. I alluded to this on a number of occasions. This white queen posting up on f5 is preventing Wesley from doing a very normal combination of sacrificing to get perpetual checks, right? This is the type of idea that White's avoiding thanks to this queen being on f5. The queen was posted on some lousy square. I'm not to pick a lousy square like a7, but there's no bailout line here, clean bailout line.
And keep in mind that b6 pawn is now a permanent weakness in the position. So end games, you want to bail into some end games, we're going to massage that pawn for all it's worth as well. You're not getting our c4 pawn, and the two bishops are going to just run ragged when they come back alive. Or we always have the move bishop takes knight, some knight, and let the remaining bishop be the dominant piece. Right. So there you have to be careful as well. These are all nasty endgames for Wesley. He's feeling the pressure, and look at the clock times now as he's really feeling it, down more than 2 minutes on the clock with a worse position and no initiative to speak of and no easy moves to find as well.
Yeah, again, he doesn't have this, simple solidifying idea. If you play a move like Queen E5, this is actually what Alex Ornischuk is is living for, hoping for. Queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, pawn takes.
He's played rook e5.
And he did play rook e5, sacrificing a pawn.
That's a pawn.
Bishop f4 has
That's a
been on
pawn.
the board.
It's
Takes
been-
on f4,
oh
queen takes
my
f4.
goodness. Oh my
We see
goodness.
all these moves, and again, that bishop on f1 coming in handy because there's no rook e1 check, no good discoveries here.
Well,
and we
Wesley-
saw a quick move from Wesley here. He just played queen e7.
He's basically saying, look, I've got a dark square fortress, you've got an H-pawn, no question about it. I'm struggling, but if I can get in rook e1 at a timely moment, the bishop has now come alive, guys. Alex Ornischuk, very, very happy. Big time happy, I should say, for the first time.
Trade of
Sometimes-
rooks on
Trade
e1.
of rooks. Oh
Trade
my.
of rooks on e1 and king h2 by Alex.
Engines hate that move.
I didn't like it either.
He hasn't played
Oh
king
my.
h2 yet, but we
We know
anticipate
it's-
seeing
yeah.
it coming. And the engines are saying it's a much bigger advantage now for white than it's ever been at any point during this game. Almost 2 pawns up is white in this ending. That black king looks mateable.
That's right. Usually the queen and knight combination favor the queen and knight, but general principles go out the window at this level,
Yeah,
and it's all
the-
about the better minor piece. The knight on c5, not really doing anything that can create threats against the king, and that's the key in queen endgames.
And you don't want to know. The engines say the best move is king f7. King f7? I'm not playing that. No way in the world.
Trying to hide where after bishop d5 check? Where's the king getting cozy?
And also g5 in the position. It's not natural moves anymore for black. He might have wanted to play knight d3 or something, but his king is the thing right now, and his time is a huge factor as well. 3 minutes down on the clock. Wesley's so in deep trouble right now.
Ownership fans certainly cheering as their man has the better minor piece and a pawn.
Yes, indeed.
And the kind of position he loves.
And 3 minutes.
Oh, this could be amazing. We might be going to Armageddon. Will he be able to pull it off?
What a total turn! I mean, this is a total turnaround from the first game. I mean, it's like white is just amazing here.
Remember trading on d1?
Yeah.
We talk about bad trades.
Yeah.
If you're not forced or if it's not forced or fantastic, rook
Forget
d1 was not a good idea. Rook d1, knight e4. What are you doing? That just didn't do anything. Your knight went off on some joyride, and then turned around and said, "You're on c5." But so what? Now we're up a pawn, and the clock keeps ticking. He's feeling the tactics now as the bishop's about to appear on d5, and he has to calculate every single move of mating ideas that are possible. He's probably thinking about how to trade queens right now, but I don't think he
Queen
wants to do
e5
that.
looks busto. I mean, I can probably play king g3 and or take on e5 immediately, but I think that what's this idea, Maurice, of king f7, bishop d5 check? Where are you hiding?
Where am I hiding?
What's
I'm
the idea of
hiding in
king
a closet
F7?
somewhere. I'm going to play this position. King e7 is the engine's move, saying that this position is still okay. You're not completely dead yet, but g5 is possible. King g2 is possible. White can take his time again. I think the key here for Alex
Queen e7
is his
on the board.
ultimate patience. He does not rush things, and he doesn't need to rush. And this though, the engines don't like at all. Bishop d5 check, the most natural move. And now the engine's giving king h7. Who wants to go to h7 and allow queen f5, g6, and queen c8? Whoa. Uh-oh. Bad news if he finds this line. This is winning for white. Suddenly the queen is forcing you to defend. Your b6 pawn's about to drop. There are no perpets anywhere over here. This is winning. Bishop d5 check. If he finds it, followed by this queen intrusion, white is completely dominating black in this position.
What a turnaround. This is remarkable because Wesley came out of the opening in such splendid shape and was playing very, very nicely.
He missed
Queen b8 check instantly answered by king h7. I'm sorry,
But he's found a queen trade. That's typical Ornischuk. He's found, whoa, he took the pawn.
Whoa, I'm not sure he made the right decision there.
Why did he take that
He's
pawn?
giving Wesley
Some opportunities.
counter chances of a perpetual check. What's
The
going
engines,
on?
the engines still like him here, but it's not the same. Precisely because of this move, there's really nothing to do about your C pawn. Plus your G pawn is under attack. These two are suddenly under attack. That's not a pawn you just won. You just realized that was a bad decision going for the pawn now. Now he's forced to play the move bishop f3. Now he's still winning, mind you. But what's this? 3 against 2. It sounds like his knight's going to sacrifice something. We're going to get into some drawn ending. Not the best way to play by Ornischuk, although he's still winning in this position for sure. And there he goes.
Throwing in a check on B1.
Throwing in this check
on B1 first.
Oh, the Indians really don't like this move now because of that blow. Knight D3, and there's a third pawn under attack. He has blown a big part of his advantage now, but he does have queen to C2.
Because there's perpetuals. After knight D3, queen takes F2. We don't have time to play this bishop F1.
No.
But this was such a poor decision on his part.
Sorry, I'm a little bit blind. What's going on after queen C2?
Queen C2 is the only move, and he'll play G6 and unpin, and then threaten, and then start with this knight dancing around the board. You got knight E1 threats. You got pawn on G4.
I don't get it. Hold on. G6, C5?
Isn't that a hanging pawn?
Yes, but then I have H5, don't I?
Yeah, but that's all you
He
get.
has played queen C2.
Yeah, but
Step one.
Right, but this is nothing.
It's
and
nothing.
Wesley hasn't played
didn't play
G6. He played
G6.
king to H8.
Because otherwise, I was going to play H5.
No, H5 didn't do anything, though, according to the engines. Your knight goes back to D3. But this position, king H8, was a mistake. G6 was the best move, and even G5 was much better. King H8 was a mistake. Queen E4, and now he's back in business. He saved both his pawns. He saved all his pawns, everyone, everywhere. The pawn on G4 is saved. The pawn on F2 is saved. The C4 pawn is saved because you don't want to give a check on E8 followed by bishop E4 check, winning. Take a look at that line. Queen C4 right now runs into check, and if you move here, then suddenly this check, and that's all she wrote. You're getting
H8 is coming after king H6.
So queen E2, Wesley just made a mistake in time pressure. I can't even talk right now. Anyway, queen check is coming. He has to play knight back. His only move is knight back to E5, and he's done so. Let me get this position on the board.
We have a quick bishop D5. Wesley, with less than 1.5 minutes, has just played the move G5.
Bishop
Knight
D5.
E5, bishop D5,
yes.
G5.
Now what? Now Wesley's acting like everything's okay, but he's only got 1:13. The key move here is H5, according to the engines. H5 followed by bishop E6. But can White make any progress?
So queen.
Interesting fortress attempts by Wesley, putting all of his pieces and pawns on dark squares and saying, you got the light square bishop, but how are you going to break through?
Actually, taking on G5 looks really interesting because that seems to shut down any true fortress. That knight on E5 will not be on a permanent square anymore. And your knight really has to stay there. And so I could play something like king G2 maybe. Because your knight can't move.
So, but for everybody watching, I mean, notice that the pawn on G4 is taboo. If you take with a knight, there's checkmating ideas on G8. If you take with the queen, those endgames are very bad with the pass C pawn. That's why we're looking at these lines, just maintaining the dark square control. And Ornischuk has played H5, trying to keep more pawns in the position. But how's he going to dislodge? And Wesley played king to G7. There's no increment, so he's playing with 1 minute and 13 seconds.
There's 11 moves to the increment, though. Move 60 will happen very soon.
Right.
So basically, White just has to get there. And he's playing king G2. Bishop E6 keeps both pawns. Is king G2 okay? Yes,
That's
it
in
is.
Armageddon.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not in Armageddon yet.
Not in Armageddon yet. King G2, 5 seconds.
Wait a minute.
delay.
There's no increment at all in this one?
In this one. It's
delay.
5
It's always
second
delay. Right. So it's not a problem. Sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies.
King G2.
We don't blame you for thinking this might go to Armageddon.
Oh boy.
The engines are
feels
giving,
like Armageddon.
The engine's giving queen E4 as best. That seems ridiculous. That seems like a draw.
What is Armageddon in a sense? Yeah.
Queen E4?
Trading queens.
And dropping the C4 pawn?
Yes, exactly. That's mindless. Every single move. Now, all the top moves drop the C pawn. All the top moves. Bishop F3, Queen E4, Bishop E4.
There is some purpose to the madness of the engine here. Because if White gets this exact position that I have on my board and follows it up with F3, he's got the king track all the way around the edge of the board to F7.
He just did something very nasty. He just played king G2, guarding his pawn. Everything is guarded, and forced Wesley to make a move. Wesley took more than 5 seconds, and now his time is ticking down, and he's about to go under a minute, and he had to play the only move, this check, and now king H3. And Wesley needs to start playing every move instantly because he's going to get eroded on the clock now that it's clear that it's all about the clock. Well, a lot of it is going to be about the clock in a second. See, Wesley just adjusted the clock to make sure he's ready to play moves instantly now. He has to.
But meanwhile, Alexander is going to equalize on the clock pretty soon. He's only at 2 minutes himself.
Well, Alex, I'm still a little bit. How is he going to break this blockade? This queen and knight work beautifully in tandem, keeping all of White's pawns and opportunities in check.
That's why I wanted to take the pawn on g5, even though h5 as the best move. Right. I wanted to take the pawn on g5. It seems like it would have offered more chances to do something in that kind of position. Now he doesn't see how to break the position, and he doesn't have any free moves. But that endgame.
Look at the clock, Maurice.
Yeah, he's getting closer now. He doesn't see the win.
Boy.
He knows he's up 2 pawns. What to do?
But where's the breakthrough?
Most practical is queen e4, go for this endgame, but it doesn't look quite winning. How do you win that? You can't get zook swung.
By the way, queen e4 in this exact moment would drop the F pawn, so you can't even do that. If you have wanted to play queen e4, you needed to do it earlier than this. King g3 is likely, and queen f4 very quickly, of course, by Wesley. Now I'm expecting king g2.
Trying to revert.
We're trying to revert back to that moment where after queen d4, I will then play.
And that's right, but guess what? They both have 1 minute on the clock now.
Oh my goodness! It's
so not a lot of
queen d4 very quickly.
Wow!
By
Look
Wesley.
at this guy's intuition. No caring for that pawn on g4.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm maintaining the blockade in the position." And now,
I think
you have to play queen e4.
You have to.
You have to try queen e4, but no longer a clock advantage.
And you have to hope that your king, after a trade of queens, you'll capture the pawn on c4. White has to hope his king can make this long Arctic trek all the way to the e7 square.
But the plus is that the black king has to deal with that h-pawn all day.
Right. That was why he kept the pawn on h5.
Okay, now he's thinking, though. He's
getting under 30 seconds. So he's going to
Again.
try it, though. I mean,
He has to try
option.
queen e4.
Let us.
But first, he's
He
wasting
played
time with
bishop
bishop
e6.
e6.
Oh, no.
Now, knight
Oh,
d3.
no.
Bishop e6.
Oh, no, a howler.
No.
That has thrown it all away. The knight has finally found the f4 square, and you will have no advantage at all. That was a big mistake.
Oh my
the win
goodness.
is gone. The win is completely gone now.
Oh, my goodness.
The knight's going to appear at f4 and equalize the
10 seconds
game.
left.
10 seconds, 8 seconds, and he's not getting any bonus time. Again, it's all about delay, not increments.
And the knight has jumped into that.
But queen c2, very, very nervous, Alex Ornischuk at this moment. Queen c2, you can't grab the bishop.
Because there's a queen g6 mate on the
Yeah,
board.
but now you have to watch out for mating ideas. King to h2, and he's lucky he's not getting mated somehow.
Right. Queen is going to slide over to f1 square, though,
7
here.
seconds left.
7 seconds for the whole game, and Wesley double guessing here. He put his queen on f1, and now he changed his mind. Saw something he didn't like. Maybe.
Well, he's definitely.
He saw bishop d5 probably, but that's good for him.
Of course, it's a touch move. He's going to have to move his queen.
30 seconds, guys.
But queen f1.
Why not queen f1?
And he's changed his mind.
What is going on here, Maurice?
It's a draw still. Bishop g8, a mate threat on the board.
Check.
Knight takes h5, check.
Still a draw.
King g2.
Check.
Knight back to f4.
Oh, no. There is a mate on queen h7 mate threat that Wesley So is going to have to deal with.
Knight g6 stops that. A lot of moves stop it, actually. f5 as well. But, and there it is. The knight has dropped back. At least he's gained that
7
much.
seconds left for Alex.
Oh, my
18 for Wesley.
And queen f4 check is on. Ooh!
And knight h4 in this position. Knight g2. And is that just a...
Is there
With the king
perpetual
taking
on the
over to-
spot now? I think it's perpetual on
That's
the
right,
spot,
because
guys.
there's knight e1 check.
Knight e1 check. If you
Yep.
go to e3, knight c2 check.
No choice. He cannot get away
And
from
it's
the
a
prevent.
draw.
A beautiful.
Wesley So is our new 2017 U.S. champion. What a dramatic, exciting